Hello everyone. My name is Emel and I'm a PhD student in ecology. So ecology is a very diverse and a very broad career. So I'm going to be talking to you about my little subfield, which is kind of specific to me. Some of you, for example, may have heard about different subfields within ecology like marine ecology or forest ecology or even microbial ecology. But what I do is kind of a mixture of soil ecology and microbial ecology and a bit of plant systems biology. So soil ecology, it looks into how soils change and how those changes affect other things in the environment. That's important because soils have a lot of carbon stored inside of them, and we'd like to avoid releasing that carbon into the atmosphere. Um, the carbon dioxide in the air it's a greenhouse gas, obviously, but it contributes to climate change, and we don't want that. So we want the soils to store as much carbon as possible. Uh, Now, for example, an easy soil ecology question would be something like, how does the amount of carbon that's stored within the soil change based on different temperatures or rain, for example, if it rains a lot versus a drought? So soil ecologists kind of look into questions like that. Ecologists conduct different experiments based on their question and then use the results of their experiment to make predictions about the natural world. Um, and as you can imagine, these predictions can be very difficult to make. So ecologists rely on computers, oftentimes, powerful computers, to help with those predictions. Now, my work, like I said, also works with microbes a lot because soils have soil microbes in them, and also plant systems biology, specifically the roots systems, because as you can imagine, roots affect soils a lot. They dig around in the soil and they change soil composition. Well, not really composition, it's a structure. And they also secrete different compounds and take up nutrients and water from the soil. So all those things really affect the soils. So that's kind of a short summary of my field. To tell you a bit about my career specifically, I'm currently a graduate student. Um, I still have a few years to learn and conduct my experiments, and I have a few different career paths that I can take after graduating. For example, if I wanted to become a professor, so like teach and sometimes maybe do research, because you can be a teaching professor, a research teaching professor. But if I wanted to become a professor, basically, nowadays I would have to get a postdoc position. A postdoc is kind of what it sounds like, is postdoctorate. It typically lasts a few years, and as a new PhD student, you conduct more research during your postdoc in a lab, and hopefully you publish several academic articles. And the more articles you publish, basically, the higher are your chances of finding a good teaching and research job after your postdoc. But of course, it's not all about the quantity of your publications, but it's also about the quality of your research and your publications as well. So, some pros of this career path of going to a postdoc and then going into an academic career as a professor is so you have the ability of answering very interesting questions that kind of you pose, so you're a bit more independent in your creativity. And if you want to do, for example, basic science, which means like if your science doesn't have to have like a very useful real life application, if you just want to do science for your curiosity's sake, academia is more suitable for that kind of stuff. Um, Also, like I said, it's kind of more independent. You are mostly your own boss. Obviously, you answer to the university, but you're pretty independent in your own lab. Also, if you like teaching, this is the best career path for that, because if you choose different career paths, you might not be teaching as much. Some cons of this job, of this career path, these jobs are kind of difficult to find, and so you might need to move around a lot before you find your permanent home. And also, if you don't want to teach, it's not the best path for you either. But if you don't want to do that, you may choose to go into an industry job or private sector. And there are many ecologists working for companies in the US or around the world. The skills you learn in grad school, if you go into a STEM field and then go into grad school, they're very applicable to different career paths and different jobs. So, for example, um, you when you go into grad school, you learn about critical thinking, like you learn to think critically, you get a good work ethic, and you also get time management skills, teamwork skills, because you often work very collaboratively in a lab. And obviously, these skills are very useful in any career path that you may choose. So, what I'm trying to say is if you go into STEM in college, you don't have to stay in STEM afterwards, but it's just like a very good basis for anything, in my opinion. Now, my experience personally as a woman in ecology has been overwhelmingly positive. I'm aware that it really depends on your advisor, your boss, your coworkers, but I've been very fortunate to always run into great people. I've always had very supportive and encouraging supervisors and advisors during my STEM education so far. And I also think that currently ecology has many young women and non-binary people joining the field as well. So more and more women are joining the field, which is really cool. We're getting more diversity. The older generation has a larger number of older white men. But I definitely see it changing because even in my cohort, I see many other women that inspire me and want to help me, make me want to do better. So yeah, I really like it, and I think that um, this is definitely something that is not. I don't think it's completely unique to me, but I know that it can be very difficult to be a woman in STEM. But I think that it's changing positively. My favorite subject in school was definitely art, and I don't know if people expect someone who's in grad school for biology to say that their favorite subject was always biology. It was not. I like the creative side of art, and as a child, like I wasn't that much into math and science. Um, I enjoyed reading about very specific things that interested me, and that's kind of what science is about. Honestly, you don't have to like all of something. You can just like your specific field, and that's okay. So, what I'm trying to say is, like, you know how some kids are into like very specific things sometimes? I don't know. Like some kids are into space, for example, some are into volcanoes, some are into dinosaurs or ancient Greece or Egypt. You know, going to grad school is a bit like that because you get a very in-depth understanding of your question and what you're interested in, but you also get more knowledge about science in general because you do take science classes. Um, but it's nice because you get to apply those science classes to your knowledge specifically. So I kind of got involved with in my area kind of accidentally. Several things led to me being here where I am today. The summer after my freshman year, I decided to intern in a lab, and it was a mycology lab. Mycology is the study of fungi, which I love very much. So these are like mushrooms, for example, are fungi, and anything from mushrooms in the woods to some mold growing on an orange in your fridge to yeast in your cupboard. These are all fungi, and they're really interesting to me. But there, I kind of learned about different fungi, and they had this huge collection that I thought was very interesting. I also learned about mycotoxins, which are toxic compounds that are secreted produced by fungi that can harm animals, including humans. And after that, I came back my sophomore year and I wanted to volunteer in a mycology lab in college, in my college. Um, so what happened was I contacted the professor and he told me that he didn't have any space for me, which was pretty sad, but he recommended another lab that was in the school, in the same school, that worked with fungi as well, but mostly was a plant lab. And that was okay because I just wanted to work with fungi. So I started volunteering in that lab, and it was a lab that worked with plant roots and mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhizal fungi are fungi that specifically work together with plants, and they help the plants grow better while the plant is giving them some nutrients that it produces. So it's a mutualistic relationship. The plant and the fungus help each other, and it's a very interesting relationship in my opinion. And that's kind of how I got into my field specifically, and that's why I work with roots and soils and fungi. I think the coolest aspect of my job is that I get to learn new things and build upon the knowledge that's been collected and uncovered by scientists before me. So they say that science is like building a giant structure, right? Not every scientist makes a huge addition, but well, actually, most don't, honestly, but every scientist lays a brick or two, and it's a very collective effort, a collaborative effort, and that's what helps build the biggest structures and make the largest discoveries in science. So I like that. Okay, so I graduated from high school and I went to college for biology. And I wasn't the best student, honestly. You need a certain GPA to continue your education after your bachelor's degree, but you don't have to have a 4.0. I don't want people to think that just because they didn't do well in one class, they just can't go to grad school and can't become a scientist. In college, I minored in applied and environmental microbiology just because I was interested in it, and that's where all the fungus classes were. Um, and yeah, I think the most important thing I did in college is volunteer in several labs. I couldn't actually work in them because I'm an international student and the budgets are tight if you can't get federal funding. So I couldn't be paid. But I volunteered my time anyway, and that taught me some skills. And also, it was a good way to build up my resume and get some recommendation letters for my graduate school applications. I also tutored biology for a little bit, but again, I don't want anybody to think that you have to do like this incredible backbreaking work to be able to get into grad school, because that's not the case. So I think that people should go into biology or STEM in general if they are curious and interested in the natural world. It's not for everybody, and I'm not like gonna push everybody to go into STEM. I think that's totally fine if you're not interested. But I think that many people get discouraged from it because they don't like their high school science class or they think they're bad at math. And you really don't have to fit that mold to be able to go into STEM and do well. You really don't. Science is wonderful and diverse, and there's always space for anybody to join. Everybody who wants can join. So yeah, that's a bit about me, and I hope it kind of answers your questions a little bit, and I hope you think that ecology is cool. And if you don't, that's fine too. But yeah.